Welcome back to another episode. And before we dive into this really juicy episode about marriage from a soul perspective, I want to invite you into my world a little bit more. If you're being called to work with me after listening to some of these episodes, I encourage you to go to my website, KarenGalway.com, and take a look at some of the offers that I have. I do offer human design readings, and they are various packages based on where you are. So I just suggest to people to take a look and what aligns with you. Ultimately, the desire is for you to get to my signature reading, which is a deep dive into who you are, but you can start with the basic reading first. And so the price of any reading that you choose can be used as credit to the next one, just to encourage you to dive deeper and not just stop at understanding what label you are, because you are more than just a label. I also have my one-on-one coaching program called Your Life by Design and my 5-week coaching mastermind and self-paced course that'll be launching soon called Vibrant You. All of those are on the website. You can take a look, KarenGalway.com. If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. This is all about marriage from a soul perspective. And my husband and I did some couples counseling a couple years ago. I think it was at the end of 2018 when we started. We were both in this very dark place within our marriage. We were just constantly triggering each other, constantly fighting, misunderstanding. We were two ships sailing past each other. At the time, we had, younger kids who were, I think at the time, 5 and 8, who were just really demanding of our energy, and it was being pulled away. And so we decided to work with this marriage counselor. And she was incredible because she was able to speak to me and use terms that I really resonate with, like different things about, the soul and the universe, and just, terms that I really sink my teeth into and I love to hear. But in the same conversation, she was able to talk more science and studies and research so that my husband can sink his teeth into. Like, she really was a magical therapist that understood both of our parts. And one day what she ended up doing was mapping out our arguments and why they happen, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But she had said something about marriage that resonated with me so hard, like I'm probably going to cry again talking about it, that it completely shifted everything. And so she said that a couple things. One, your soul is always wanting to heal. Your soul is always wanting to expand. But that literally is what it does. It incarnates into a human body. It comes to the, earth and to expand. And then after this lifeline or lifetime, it reincarnates in another body to continue the expansion process, right? And we have lessons and karmic contracts to live out. And if our previous incarnation of our previous family, did not live that out, then we have to live it out before we move on to the next, right? So this is why like generational trauma and ancestral trauma happens. And so in order for it to stop that generational trauma, we have to do the work before we move on to the next. So our soul is constantly seeking out healing. Like any person that comes into our life, we've had these situations where people come into our life like a friend and might be in our life for a few months or a couple years, and then it fizzles out and they move on. They came in for a purpose, right? And so with romantic relationships, the soul is seeking out like a deep connection and seeking out to like help that person continue their healing and expansion while that person is also helping us continue that expansion. And if you listen to the last episode that I had spoke about jealousy and triggers, I said that triggers are just basically this beautiful flashlight being lit on the problem, right? And in order for you to heal something, you have to be aware of it. So triggers just bring awareness. And so your soul is connected to another soul. You fall in love and then you trigger the fuck out of each other, basically, if you haven't done the work. And the triggers, this constant triggering, you're just like trigger, is to bring awareness to what you have not healed on both parts. And once you're able to bring to surface, like, oh, okay, that's why I'm triggered. Okay, let me heal that. Then the triggers become less. Now, the issue is when your soul wants to expand and ready to do the work, but the other person is resisting that expansion. And that's usually what ends up leading to divorce or to, marriages dissolving or separation, or, not necessarily marriage dissolving, because if you're not married, but like separation and ending of that relationship is because one person is not committed to their expansion for whatever blocks that they have. They're not there yet in their journey. You hear of sometimes, men or even women talking about their experience with a marriage that didn't work out, about how like something major happened and then they led to a divorce, and then they learned their lesson in their next relationship. What they brought in was like so much healing into it because they've already done the work, right? So it's just, if that soul's not ready to expand, it can lead to a relationship ending. And so these triggers, if both partners are willing to accept it, these triggers are a way to like bring awareness to this healing. And so when we're able to see it in that way, then when we're feeling triggered by our partner, then we know, okay, this is something that I need to work on, as opposed to just project, and like, this person sucks because of X, Y, and Z. We're able to like, there's a purpose to it, right? And so I remember when my therapist had said that, and I just had this feeling of complete honor. I felt so honored that my soul was selected to be a part of my husband's healing. Like, just literally. And I think we were working together for like 6-7 months before she said it. And it just it was like a switch that turned on for me in our relationship. And she said, I wish I had told you this sooner. Like, it literally just played a huge role. So then if he was having a hard day, which I'm going to talk about the trigger pattern and the cycle, but if he was having a hard day, instead of me taking it personally or being triggered by it, it was my time to go inward. It was my time to meditate. It was my time to separate myself a little bit from what he's going through, because what he's going through may not be anything related to me. And instead of me taking it personally and being triggered, it's my opportunity to like go inward. And so that leads a little bit to this kind of like the pattern of our fighting. And so this is what our therapist had mapped out for us. And it's true for a lot of relationships when there's a lot of, when there's, you're being triggered and everything. So what ends up happening is you're triggered by something, right? And whatever that trigger is, you have a defense mode. So for my husband, when he felt triggered, he would go inward. Now, when he would go inward, that threatened me. That threatened my safety, like my perceived safety from an ego standpoint, not like actual safety, but my perceived safety, because I have a history of abandonment that happened in my childhood. And so when that happened, it would trigger the F out of me, and I would dig my claws in deeper and like not wanting to let him retreat. It's like, you're not going anywhere. Right? So when I felt triggered, I went into defense mode. And my defense mode was to like, are you okay? Are you okay? Is everything okay? Just literally like harassing him. And me going after him would trigger him more. And then he would retreat more, which would trigger me more, and I would come out more. And it becomes like this cycle of when he felt triggered, he had a defense. His defensive mode was my trigger. And then I would go into my defensive mode. My defensive mode was his trigger. And it goes around and around and around until you're able to stop and walk away and look at it from a bird's eye view about what is actually happening, right? And so this, in our therapy, we're able to bring awareness for ourselves of like, again, like if he was feeling triggered by something, or if he, not necessarily him being triggered, but even if he had a hard day at work, or if he was having a hard time and I was being triggered by that because, it was triggering my own feelings of insecurity or whatever, instead of me grabbing my claws and being like, you're not going anywhere, like I'm not going to give you space, I would say to him, I'm going to go downstairs in the basement. If you need to talk, that's where I am. And it just allowed us to give each other space while we were going through that journey. And so if you find yourself in a relationship where you feel like you're constantly arguing, take a look at the type of arguments that you're having. Usually there's a pattern to it. Usually it's triggering something, a childhood wound, right? Like abandonment, or, there's different childhood wounds. I can't think of other ones that are coming to me right now. And so like my husband grew up in an environment where he was an only child, and so a lot of attention was on him, right? And so me going after him was triggering him, like, no, like, I am an adult, I like don't smother me type of thing. But of course his retreat was triggering my abandonment issues that I have. So there is this pattern. And then how can you give space to that person? But also looking at it like, this is the soul's purpose. This is the soul's journey, right? Of expansion, of the, the dark night, or the dark night of the soul, or of like the shadow. Like, this is the shadow work of being able to work on that, so then you can heal it and step into the light more. And then finally, the other thing I want to talk about is, and I had someone else mention this to me too, not the therapist that we worked with, but someone else I had worked with in the past, who said that usually we are also attracted to someone who represents a parent that we have the most tension with. And again, it's the soul repeating, or like your subconscious mind or whatever, repeating a pattern for you to heal it. So if you had issues with your mom for whatever reason, your partner, even though if your partner is not a woman, your partner would represent some characteristics of your mom. And it's to trigger, to help you heal, which I honestly think is just beautiful. I really do. And as hard as like marriage counseling is and therapy is, and recognizing your own shortcomings and doing the work while you're also raising kids, as hard as it is, I think it's incredibly beautiful to see that your soul has this purpose and it's expanding. And what you don't heal in this lifetime gets passed down, right? Your triggers that you are showing your children, and without you healing them, gets passed down to them, and then they go on, and it becomes this generational trauma. And so in order to heal it, you have to have awareness to it. So this was a quick episode on marriage, which of course, like, there are like weekend retreats on marriage, right? So this isn't a deep dive into it. This is just probably 10 minutes just talking about it, but it's just a way to bring awareness to the relationships that are happening in your life and why you might be struggling with some things. But I encourage you, if you are struggling to have these conversations with your partner, seek out a couples counselor, someone who understands both of your languages and are able to help you heal, because that, like I said, that is the purpose of the soul, is to heal and expand and to live out the karmic or the contract that it had before it became into human form. All right, that is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, if you liked what you heard, go ahead and take a screenshot, post it on Instagram, tag me at I am Karen Galway, and I will send you a free gift on how to navigate your own human design chart. All right, that is it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.